everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the government of Ecuador and specifically attempting to answer the question, how does the government of Ecuador affect the daily lives of the people that live there? And so you can see here in this first picture, this was the second day I was there after staying overnight from flying. And you can see that the crew is working on cleaning up the street. They're either trimming the tree from interfering with the power lines or they're cleaning up branches that have fallen down. Either way, just being one of the first things I noticed there that the workers are already, they're working on it and trying to make the infrastructure stay working. And I think that says a lot about the government and how it's working to keep everything running smoothly. And another thing that's very important is the transportation, specifically the methods of transportation in Ecuador. Here's a picture of one of their trolley buses, kind of. This was in Quito, and anywhere you go in Ecuador, public transportation is huge. Buses, the trolleys, taxis, you're going to find them everywhere, and it's one of the, well, most people use the public transportation around the cities. There are a lot of people that own their own vehicles, but there are also a lot of people that use the public transportation. And here we have some pictures of the roads. This was in Quito, specifically Old Quito, the old historical part. And you can see the streets are kind of like old cobblestone-ish. They're a couple hundred years old at least. Here's another picture of the streets. You can see though they're still working. There's not really any problems with the roads there. Here's another small street. You can tell that the streets are very small. And the buildings are right there. And the streets are usually very crowded as well. Here was some of the roads in Guayaquil. This looks more like a typical highway that you might find in the United States. Again, it looks good. There's nothing wrong with the roads. Another picture here, very similar highway. 3 lanes on both sides. It's very good infrastructure around the cities, at least, and in the urban areas. There's a street where it's a bit more crowded, as you can tell, but it still runs smoothly, and there is sometimes traffic congestions, but the government does a great job of taking care of the roads and making sure all that stuff is working efficiently. Now, with the infrastructure comes the gas stations, and gas station prices for gas. It's very interesting because Ecuador, their government does something different than here in the United States. Their government subsidizes the gas and oil prices. Now, what this means is that they pay the gas and oil companies money so that, for the citizens, for the consumers, the price can be lower at the pump. So if you can zoom in and see there, diesel actually starts at around $1, and the maximum price for gas that you're going to find is $2, which is significantly lower than here in the United States. And Ecuador does use the same currency as the United States. They use the US dollar. Where here in the US you might find gas that's $3.50 per gallon. It's a lot more. But because the Ecuador government subsidizes the gas, it results in a lot lower prices for the consumers. And that's good because Ecuador runs on oil with the public transportation and all the people that use it. They need to keep their prices down so that those can continue to function properly. And I should also add that Ecuador, they are a big producer of oil, a big exporter of oil. In fact, over 50% of their GDP, their gross domestic product, which is a total of all the items exported out of Ecuador, over 50% of that is oil. So that's quite interesting. And just recently, back in August of 2013, the current president, Rafael Correa, made a decision to start drilling in the Yasuni National Park. It's estimated there's countless barrels of oil to be collected from it, and a lot of conservationists wanted to keep that forest, the national park. They wanted to keep it, safe, I guess. They didn't want the government to start drilling there, but Correa made the decision after not enough money was raised to account for that, because there's billions of dollars in that Yasuni National Park under oil. The daily lives of many children, the schooling is directly influenced by the government. In Ecuador, it's interesting because the government pays public tuition, meaning if you're a student, the government's going to pay for you to go to school. Up until college, they won't I'm not sure if they'll pay for that, but for your public schooling, they'll pay for all of it. That includes tuition, and that also includes their uniforms, because in Ecuador, pretty much all of the schools, they wear uniforms. And the government will pay that for you. You know, here in the United States, you might pay hundreds of dollars for a year's worth of tuition in, say, a high school, but in Ecuador, the government pays it for them. Was a picture overlooking Guayaquil, and you can see on the left side of the Guayas River there. And along that walk, you can't actually see it, but it's the Malecon 2000. Now, the Malecon 2000 was a government project to kind of urbanize and make a nice boardwalk and commercial area, and they've done a really nice job of doing that. Here you can see is a picture close-up of the boardwalk. You can see the lights that line the boardwalk. The water itself doesn't look too clean, but the boardwalk is very nice. It's very modern. It's become somewhat of a commercial and tourist area, and I can imagine it provides a lot of revenue for the city. In fact, there's an IMAX cinema along the boardwalk, and a commercial center with, you know, even a McDonald's there, lots of fast food restaurants, and lots of just small stores that operate along the boardwalk. So it's a very good renovation. The government, again, they started it, and I think it's really helped the city out a lot. Here you can see very fancy building, and again, you know, it's kind of significant that it's right across from the Malecon 2000. So the government has got a lot of influence there in that part of the city. Another fancy building that's right across again from the Malecon 2000. Now, I was actually able to go on the Guayas River and take some pictures of the Malecon just so you can see what it looks like. This here is an old ship, the Henry Morgan, I believe it's called, and it's right there at the Malecon, and it offers hour tours along the Guayas River, so you can kind of see what the Malecon looks like and how impressive it really is. This is a view from on the ship, and you can see the Malecon. It actually stretches out quite a few blocks, and it's very long. And again, people will just go there for just recreation or just, you know, just for a good time. Again, and the government built that, and a lot of people, you know, they notice it. It helps with tourism especially, and just with a lot of the daily businesses that operate along the Malecon. There's another view there. And at nighttime, the Malecon actually lights up along with the rest of the city, and it looks really nice, you know. Very modern for sure. And there's the Malecon Centro Comercial, the commercial center, the shopping and the fast food. And there you can see there's a McDonald's. So it's an area that's just flourished thanks to the government, and you can see that on a daily basis. Another thing the government has daily is their national parks. They do a good job of keeping the national parks. This is Cotopaxi, the world's highest in altitude active volcano, and the government preserves them, and they're working to preserve a lot of the animals there, and in fact they do have a lot of national parks there, and the Ministry of Tourism, I believe, and Wildlife, it provides some jobs for local tour guides, and, you know, a good source of income for the government too when people go there for tourism. Here's another national park, Macholia National Park, the Ministerio del Ambiente, which is a section of the government that deals with the parks and the wildlife. They're working to preserve and to keep their national parks running. This was Isla de la Plata, which is another national park, and you can just see kind of some of the plants and animals that they have there. And they're doing a really good job of preserving that stuff because, I mean, you know, for some of these animals, I don't know if they're endangered necessarily, but their population numbers aren't extremely high, such as, you know, the blue-footed booby or the frigate birds that live on the Isla de la Plata. They're doing a good job preserving them. They have a fairly good population on that island. And there's one last view from the Isla de la Plata. And this brings me into our next section of what I've found to be kind of two different groups of people in Ecuador. These llamas are representative of the first kind, and these people, you know, their lives are not as much affected by the government as you might think. Here's a view of the village that we visited, and this village, I think it could survive on its own. I mean, if the government didn't exist, I think they could still flourish and they could still survive, without much hassle from the government or much, dependence on the government. Here we can see the llamas and alpacas. The llamas are very important to this community. They use the llamas pretty much for everything. They use all parts of the llama. They use the fur to make the clothing, hats and sweaters, and they also use the meat as a food source too. Here's the museum at the town, and I don't know if you can read on the sign, but it is actually sponsored by the Ministry of Tourism, so perhaps they get a little bit of income from people that tour there, as we did with EF Tours. But without that, the town could still survive. They could live off what they have locally. They don't necessarily need assistance from the government or economy or business or anything like that. And inside the museum, you can see that the llama is very much a center of these people's culture. It's what they believe in. And here you can see, this on the left was another group that traveled with us, but on the right, our tour guide, our local guide, walking the llama. And that's pretty commonplace in the city, the village. You see a lot of people just walking their llamas. Very local, very traditional. They do have roads, as you can see, but again, they could probably do without the government. I don't know that the government is that much a part of their daily lives, other than just tourism and such. Now, in stark contrast to that, we have here the Independence Square in Quito. And this part, government it's everywhere. It's at the center here. It's one of the most populous squares in Quito. As you can see here, it's a picture from the stair steps of the capital of Quito, the Capitol building. And as you can see here, there's some more city offices. But basically, surrounding this square, you have major government buildings. You have the Capitol building of Quito. You have the presidential palace. You have some other city buildings, government type buildings behind it, including the city hall. And at the center you have the memorial that commemorates the independence of Ecuador. So government here is very important. And here you can see a sign that's the basically it's, I don't know if it's propaganda, but it's, asking for the re-election of Rafael for 4 more years. So at this square, especially, government is very important to these people as it's surrounding all of them. And Quito being the capital city, that's kind of, expected. But here you can see there's a lot of people here, just surrounded by government. So it's very important to these people. And here, I don't have a video of it. I wish I did, but it was a lady giving like a presentation or a speech right on the steps of the Capitol building. And that's just very important. They do a lot of demonstrations here, a lot of songs and music, and it's very important to them. And this is all because of the government, right on the square there. So that concludes this presentation. Thanks for watching. And again, this trip just really helped me understand, just the different kind of cultures, and things are very different in other countries than they are from our own. And taking a trip like this and just getting to experience it and, just live through it, it really helps you understand, that the places are different. Just based off my project alone, you learn a lot of different stuff about the people there. Especially the government, it affects the people there differently than it might affect us here. There's not quite as much for some people that are affected by government. For some, it may be even more than people here. So, it's just really helped me be aware of that and the way people feel and why they act the way they do over there. So I hope this video helped gain some global perspective, and thanks for watching.